and welcome from me, Edward Gallagher, Director at Galois. We are lucky enough to be joined by Nick Veasey today, famed British artist. Hello, Nick, how are you?
Hello, Ed, and hello out there, anybody foolish enough to look at this.
Well, let's hope there are many. I know we've been having a lot of great interaction with the audience out here in the Middle East, and we've got some questions coming from them later. Nick's a celebrated artist, highly collected, not just by individuals, but permanently into institutions, V&A in London, Mass MoCA, Museum of Contemporary Art in San Francisco, Taipei. The list goes on, Nick, at the risk of embarrassing you. But yeah, as part of that, and as being part of these amazing exhibitions, you must have shown some interesting characters around. Did I see Prince William and Princess Kate, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, visited one of your exhibitions?
Yeah, that was one of my highlights of my career, being a very proud Brit. The phone rang on. It was on an Friday afternoon, and a lady said, "What is your opinion on the royal family?" And I said, "Who's calling?" And she went, "Oh, I'm so and so from the British Embassy." So I told her the truth. I said that I think it's really good for tourism for the country and for morale and that history and culture and all that sort of stuff, symbolism. And she said, "Okay, fine. Are you free to come out to Stockholm on these days?" So I said, "Yeah." She didn't tell me who I was going to meet or anything like that. But after a while, more and more information came out of the woodwork. And yeah, I was lucky enough to be flown back to Sweden, to Stockholm in Sweden, where I was having a retrospective exhibition at Fotografiska. Fotografiska is the world's largest photography museum.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was a great opportunity for me anyway. And then the icing on the cake was right at the very end of the exhibition to go back and give a private tour to Kate Middleton and Prince William.
Fabulous.
Yeah, it was really interesting seeing how these people work, because I've met a few celebrities in my life, but they're on a different level. It's a completely different level. The amount of security services and, you know, what you can do, what you can't do, only speak when you're spoken to and all that sort of thing. It's a different level. And
any other celebrity fans of your work or moments?
Well, before we finish on the Kate and Will's story, what's interesting is that she is a really passionate photographer herself. And it's a real big hobby of hers. So they were genuinely interested. I was told by the people organising all this stuff that I had 5 minutes with them because they had other events to go to afterwards. And 25 minutes later, they're still asking me questions. And Kate in particular, she was interested in quite a few of the things. And yeah, they were really engaged. And once all the cameras went away and it was a more private experience, I felt really honoured because they genuinely were interested.
Agreed. And it's fascinating. And I didn't say before, but Nick is an X-ray artist, preeminent in his field in that space. It's fascinating, fascinating stuff. You've done such a great range of work, you know, of different subjects, etc. What's your process for coming up with new subject matter?
Well, I guess it's very kind of you to say I'm preeminent in my field, but I think it's a very small field because it's quite a restrictive process. And radiation, for those of you that don't know, is dangerous. You know, it can kill people. So you have to overcome that challenge firstly and find a safe way to work, which thankfully I have. And then there are the practical issues that obviously I can't X-ray living people, I can't X-ray moving objects. Everything I do, every exposure I do is between 3 and 15 minutes. So whatever I'm X-raying has to be still because the exposures take so long. And also it's sort of like on one hand, it's very sort of technology led and up to date, even innovative. And on the other hand, it's the sort of the alchemy and the patience of the historic processes of photography. I still work with chemicals and film, but I'm using very up to date, high tech equipment to grab the image, but I use the old school photography to process it. And yeah, sort of, it's a very unusual process, that's for sure.
Yeah, and here at Galois, we're really passionate about that mix of science and technology and the physicality of art, the traditional techniques. I think it's a great blend of that. And you sort of keep pushing on not just subjects, but innovation in other ways. I was lucky enough to see one of your amazing lenticulars recently. Can you tell us a bit more about how you keep expanding the oeuvre by doing more and more in that area?
Well, my career really has been based around photography, which is a still image. But finally, I think I'm beginning to wake up to the fact that it engages more people if you can make it move. And the lenticular process, which is a very old process, the sort of things you buy in in the gift shop in Disneyland. You can buy little pens where Mickey Mouse's ears wobble and things like that. And I'm using that old technology to sort of make my sort of X-rays move. And the really interesting thing is that when you use it with the human form, and as I've already said, I can't X-ray living people. So when I X-ray people, I X-ray a dead person, I X-ray a skeleton. And by making that skeleton move, you bring it to life. So I'm bringing back the dead.
and then, yeah, a reanimating Frankenstein. I like it. Yeah. And then, you know, consistently in your practice, and also obviously in the show we're exhibiting at the moment, you're looking to explore the hidden elements behind, whether that be beauty or otherwise. Can you talk a little bit about how you like to scratch beneath the surface of the icons of modern society? Yeah,
I think thanks for asking that question, Ed, because it's a particular passion of mine. I hope I don't offend people, but I do think sometimes we sort of rely too much on the frivolous things that don't really matter, like what we wear, what we drive, and all that sort of stuff. I'm getting on a bit now in life, and I can realize the things that are really important to me and my family, my loved ones, and sort of that sort of passing things down on the generations. They become more and more important to me as I get older. But I find it quite fascinating, really, that you can go into one store and buy a pair of shoes for $50 US, and then you can go into another store and buy a pair of shoes for $5,000 US. What makes those shoes 100 times more expensive than the other shoes? Well, it's branding and glamour and glitz, and obviously they're better quality as well. So I like really to sort of make like I think it was described by one of the curators of the Victoria and Albert Museum really well. They call my work forensic investigation as an art form. So I like to take these glamorous objects, whether they're Ferraris or very fancy handbags or dresses or whatever, and X-ray them, because when you X-ray them, you see how they're made, why they truly exist, how are they put together, how they're designed. All the sort of things that are sometimes hidden to the human eye are revealed. So when you take away the red of the Ferrari and look at it in a more monochromatic form, you start to think of, wow, it's got a big engine, it's got big tires, there's the seats, and then you begin to realize how it works, rather than it being a sexy Ferrari. It's still a sexy Ferrari, but you see, it's like a visual story of how it came to be.
Yeah, I think there's great beauty to the innards too, and to the workings of these fantastic machines. And I love some of the detail you put in some of the other items. Like if people haven't been lucky enough to see the work up close, in some of these handbags, there's a variety of paraphernalia. Did I see a coin left over in a Birkin? What was that about?
Yeah, well, I was brainstorming the idea of doing handbags with my wife. She knows more about handbags than I do. And she was telling me about this thing called a Birkin bag. And then she told me how much they cost. And in parts of England, you can buy a house for that. So I was just amazed at how much they cost. And I found that somebody that actually had one of these handbags, and she kindly lent it to me. So I thought it would be quite ironic to leave 2 cents in the bottom of the bag, because my idea really there is that you spent all your money on your handbag and all you've got left is 2 cents.
Yeah, love it. Absolutely.
And then in the other handbags, I've sort of done it as like a sort of like a bit of a nightmare for us guys, really, where you meet a woman and hidden in her handbag are the tools to kill you.
True, right? There's poison hidden away in all sorts.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously we're working together on this exhibition, first time in the Middle East, really exciting, and we're doing it online. And you know, our experience is that gives much larger audience access to the work, and it's kind of exciting from that front. Obviously, in these trying times of no travel as well, you know, we'd love to get you over here, and I know that people would love to be doing this in the flesh, and one time we will do that. But could you speak to a little bit about the VR and the AR and the excitement of moving on and pushing the boundaries of technology to let people really experience the work en masse in this current exhibition?
Of course, Ed. Just like any other artist, really, what's important to me more than anything is that people get to see the work. The more, the better. And you deserve some congratulations on a personal level, Ed, because you've really driven this through, and you believe in the virtual exhibition being as important, or if not more important, than the physical exhibitions, because you're new to the gallery world. You're looking at it with fresh eyes, and I totally agree with you, particularly for the younger generation. It is the way ahead. And as an artist, I can share my work with people that can't come to a physical exhibition. You can share your work with people all around the world. And the technology is moving ahead so quickly. Obviously, I'm reluctant to get involved in anything which gives a poor quality resolution image. I want my work to zing off the computer screen just as much as I want it to zing when you stand there and look at it in the face.
Yeah.
And what we've done together proves that it's totally possible. And I'm hoping that some people have spent some time having a look around these virtual exhibitions, because in some ways they're better than the real thing, because we can put on a better exhibition virtually than we can physically, because we haven't got the limitations and the logistics of moving everything to one place, hanging it, delivering it, getting it through customs and all that sort of thing. We can sort of entertain, educate the audience in a better way.
Yeah, and we haven't had a chance to talk about it, but I'm excited to tell you that we looked at the statistics just prior to the call, and we've had over 2,500 people through the doors of your exhibition in the brief few weeks we've had that on already. So people experiencing, looking around the environment digitally, hanging the work in their home in augmented reality. So we couldn't have done that if we'd just been doing it in a single gallery space.
And the great thing for the viewer is that they can do it when they want, not when you're open. They can do it if they want to do it in the middle of the night. They can do it in the middle of the night. Do it.
And many are for some reason.
Yeah, I think we all do, don't we? We're all thinking, right, I'm going to chill out. I'm going to, I'm interested in art. So at night time, I look at things to do with art on the computer. And I'm sure you do too.
I do indeed. And I think it naturally plays, as our first exhibition, it sort of naturally worked because, you're exploring science and technology and art crossing over as we are. And we're really interested in that space. So, I mean, what's your view on other innovations in art? We're seeing a lot about people collecting in digital form rather than physical, including NFTs. Have you got a view of that and that completely different group of people often who are collecting art in a different way?
Yeah, I've got a view on it. I think it's great that as an artist, you can prepare your work in a different form. And people are going to support it. Also, it attracts the younger generation into the art world. When I was a kid, I used to go around London, going around to all the galleries, and some of them are really off-putting. They've got like this minimal window. You have to press the buzzer to go in, and when you go in, there's some officious so-and-so behind a desk who reluctantly looks at you and tuts because they know you haven't got enough money, or they think you haven't got enough money to buy anything. It's taken out of the equation. Because with the younger generation, they either like it or they don't like it. And if they do like it, they want it, and they want it quick. So the NFT is perfect for that, because it's a digital delivery and like a digital piece of art. It gives me another opportunity to make something different. I've got nothing but good to say about it, really. Obviously, the view about the currency and the value of crypto and all that sort of stuff, that's got to settle down. But in general, I'm all for it.
Agreed. Yeah, well, obviously we're fans too of people collecting however they want to collect and in whatever format and with whatever currency they want to exchange it for. So
pushing me to make more moving work, because it's a digital delivery. It's more suited to moving images than it is to my still photographs. So it's pushing me to get it together to create sequential images that create like a little animation or a movie or very short.
Agreed. You can do different stuff with it, can't you? I think it's exciting for that you can expand. Obviously, we've had the show on and lots of great visitors, but we've also offered these people recently the opportunity to engage with us and ask some quick questions over social media. So I wanted to give them the chance to get answers from the man himself.
No.
So I'll say it in the first person, but these questions aren't from me, I promise.
Right, okay.
So is there an object that you would love to work with, but so far, for whatever reason, it's been out of reach, it's technically been impossible to challenge? Is there something out there that you hanker to work with?
Gazelle Bundon? No, in reality, I'd love to do a submarine. I think a submarine would be really interesting because it's somewhere where people will live underwater. It's got all these little rooms and compartments, and because it sustains humanity, it has to be sort of self-sufficient. So I think that's quite an interesting picture, and I know it would be beautiful in X-ray.
Yeah, it would.
Other things I'd love to do are more sort of wider landscape nature things. I've X-rayed some trees and some flowers and stuff, but I'd love to be able to do like a full landscape type thing in X-ray. So you can see what's on the other side of the mountain, that sort of thing. That's
interesting, and I really like your nature work. Actually, I sort of mentioned before, sometimes it comes up so ethereal and beautiful. I think it's particularly with the natural subjects that really happens. Really, really lovely.
Yeah,
stuff.
Thanks. The interesting thing about when you X-ray a natural object is that, again, because you're looking through it and seeing the insides of it, it sort of tells the story of how it exists and reproduces and all that sort of like coming to a bit like maybe like a science class. This, but yeah, X-ray can be really beautiful with nature.
Agreed. And Nikki asked, what was the first fashion piece you X-rayed? And what is it that's drawn you to fashion overall in your artwork?
Well, the very first thing I X-rayed fashion-wise was a pair of men's boxer shorts. Very, very basically with X-ray, the smaller the object, the easier it is to X-ray. So I didn't want to start with a full-length wedding dress or anything like that. So I started with a pair of pants, and they look anything but pants. Really sort of just a pair of $5 boxer shorts, but even something so simple like that, when it's X-rayed, can be very elegant. When you think about X-raying garments, like I said earlier, that an X-ray can reveal something you can't see with the human eye, but with a garment, that isn't really the case, because you can turn the garment inside out and see all the seams and how it's been sort of put together. It just, with X-ray, it creates a sort of another level of beauty to it. It sort of makes it a bit more ethereal, diaphanous. What I quite like about fashion really as well is that when you look at fashion, the fashion business, it's all sort of, it's as synthetic as you can imagine, really. It's sort of it's very aspirational. But when you take an X-ray of the garment and you take away the glamorous model and the glamorous location and all that fluff, and just look at what it's about, the actual clothing in isolation, it makes it a bit more serious. And they're beautiful things. I'd love to do more and more of it.
Yeah, and I saw some of the beautiful stuff you did with DNA around the fashion, some of the dresses, and the amazing construction of those older fashion items, the amount of ribbing and boning and all of that stuff that was going on.
For those of you that don't know, I was commissioned by the Victoria and Albert Museum to X-ray a dress by the designer Balenciaga. He sadly died, but he was a bit of a recluse during his life. And I X-rayed one of his most famous dresses that was made for the actress Ava Gardner. And that image was put next to the actual dress in the exhibition. So you could see the dress, and then you could see inside the dress and all these sort of secrets he used to make the dress sort of float around the female form. And that dress became the inspiration for the new Victoria and Albert Museum that they're actually building in Stratford in the East London. They're building a whole new museum mile in East London, where all the London museums, the V&A, the Natural History Museums, the Science Museum are opening another branches in East London. And the architects have built the whole design around that dress picture.
Really?
Yeah, it's
beautiful.
Really, I'm honoured, yeah. Because it's structural. You've got all these chambers, you go through the grand entrance and then you go off all into these different rooms to see different things.
All from the structure of that.
They use that as a starting point.
Lovely. Yeah. And then moving on from fashion, I'm guessing this is a question from James, so definitely a boy. As both a car and a Bond fan myself, what's next on these themes for you? Bond or car or both?
I think James has already worked it out himself with that question, hasn't he? It's going to be the DB5.
Lovely,
Yeah,
lovely.
yeah. It's whether I can get one with all the machine guns and the spokes that come out the wheels, and
that'd be cool, right?
Well, if it's an X-ray, it's got to show all the toys, isn't it? It's got to show all the things inside it. If I X-ray a DB5, somehow I've got to find the machine gun and the.
I'm reserving myself a copy of that one. Awesome.
And all that.
And then someone else asked, how did you get into X-rays for art in the first place? How did you come across it?
Well, I think really the best way to answer that question is to tell you how I got into X-rays, and whether it's art or not is open to debate. But I was first commissioned to take an X-ray by a maverick TV show called The Big Breakfast, which over here in the UK doesn't exist anymore, but it was like a light-hearted breakfast show. And one of the presenters was sitting on a truckload of cola cans, and one of the cola cans on the ring pull had a magic letter or a number. And the script was, how can we cheat? How can we see where the magic can is with the magic number where you'd win £100,000? Cut to X-ray of can. Well, my wife, or girlfriend at the time, now wife, was the graphic designer for this TV show, The Big Breakfast. She couldn't find anyone to take the X-ray. She's running out of time for the deadline. And we were talking about it over dinner one night. I've always been interested in photography. So I found a way to do it for her. I hired an X-ray machine, did the cola can, and that was the life-changing moment for me. That's nearly 30 years ago now. But
amazing.
It found me. I was lucky. Sometimes things work out like that. It was serendipity.
I think you touched on it before, but just for clarity, someone asked about how do you X-ray people? Obviously, people cognizant that it's dangerous.
Yeah. So a lot of radiographers ask me this because when you're in a hospital and you're asked to go to the X-ray department to have an X-ray, the radiographer can refuse to X-ray a patient because that patient will get exposed to radiation in the taking of that X-ray. So if the radiographer thinks there's another way of diagnosing that patient without X-raying them, they'll refuse to do it and send them back to the consultant. Really interesting, actually, particularly with women of childbearing age. So when I X-ray the human form, the last thing I want to do is X-ray living people because I'll be giving them needless exposure to radiation. So necessity being the mother of invention, I X-ray a dead person. The good thing about dead people is they don't move around too much. So as I said earlier, I need to X-ray for 3 minutes plus. So they certainly stay still for 3 minutes.
And follow up from me, how does one lay one's hands on dead people to X-ray?
It's very, very good question, Ed. They're hard to come by. If you go out in the middle of the night digging up graves, as I'm sure you do every weekend, when you pull a skeleton out of the ground, it all comes apart because what's holding you together now is your blood pressure and your muscle tissue around your bones and your organs.
Right.
And when you die, all that disappears. So I found a skeleton that's actually been minimally pinned because lots of skeletons are pinned in all the joints that move, and those pins show on the X-ray. And in a local teaching hospital here in England, in the Canterbury Christchurch Teaching Hospital, they have what they call a phantom, which is basically another word for an X-ray, in a pressurized rubber suit. Up until the 1970s, they used to teach student radiographers how to do X-rays by using dead bodies, by skeletons. So I'm not unique in this. But nowadays, they teach student radiographers by replicating the intricacies of the human body. Like your head is thicker than your little finger, so you need more radiation to X-ray the skull than you do a finger digit. All those sort of things they teach radiographers to do with plastic compounds that replicate the different textures and weights of the human body. But they used to teach them with stiffs, with dead bodies.
And what's the biggest thing you've ever X-rayed? We've been asked.
Okay, so the biggest thing I've ever done, which was first time and only time I've had a phone call where somebody said to me, we don't care how long it takes and we don't care how much it costs. So if anyone's out there wants to make that call again, I'm sure Ed can give you my number. But they said, yeah, and that it was for an airline, a United Airlines, and they wanted me to X-ray a 777 jet, which initially I thought was impossible. But my process, if anyone's interested, there are some links on Ed's website and on my website where you can see videos with more detail of the process. But basically, it's a sort of you X-ray in pieces. So just the one wing of a plane is probably somewhere between 300 and 500 X-rays.
Wow.
Good thing is though, is once you've got one wing of a plane, you can flip it and you get the other wing of the plane. You don't have to do the wing twice. Yeah.
That's good news. But I mean, what a meticulous process going through and doing section by section by section.
Yeah, yeah. It was one of those. I only did it because they said A, they're going to pay me to do it, and B, because it was United Airlines. United Airlines gave me a letter of introduction to Boeing. At the time I did it, Boeing were making 35 of these 777s for United Airlines. I don't know how much one of those costs, but I should imagine £100 million. And anyway, so the guy that signs the purchase orders for the plane also signed the letter of introduction. So the answer,
one-off opportunity.
The question I said to Boeing, the answer was yes.
Yeah, a unique chance from a very good customer, I guess.
Absolutely.
And of course, yeah. How much to X-ray my Lamborghini? That was the one that tickled me the most. Very Dubai.
Very Dubai. How much? Do you want me? That's a bit vulgar, isn't it? To talk money?
Yeah, no, I don't really expect you to answer, but I'm sure you've done custom work before.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. Particularly with private car collections. There is an Italian owner of Italian concept cars, and I am working with him in creating a template in his garage where he parks his car next to the X-ray of the car, so that when the car's not there, he can talk to his friends about what should go there, and when the car is there, he can show them what's special about that particular car.
Super cool. That's really, really amazing. Brilliant. Well, listen, Nick, thank you so much for taking the time. And I know for a fact people will be fascinated to hear more about your practice, and we'll be sharing this with our audience. We've loved having you exhibit with us, and for everyone watching, you've got a short amount of time left to get into this exhibition, see the work, and obviously pick it up for your homes and your mansions and your yachts.
Thank you, Ed. One final thing to anybody watching this: please support Ed and Galois. What he's doing, building his new roster of artists, is really interesting. I think this gallery is going to go places. It's got a different attitude to the other galleries I work with, and we should all support him because he's supporting us artists, and we all need each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Really kind.